Yes, I could hear the horns in there. You're with Miff, Jay and the Doctor, and Trent Reznor is on the line. And that was capital G from 9 Inch Nails' new album, Year Zero.
And is it all right calling it a concept album? Is it a concept album? Is that the wrong word for it?
No, I mean, that's what I call it.
Yeah.
You know, in a nutshell, basically, it was, me being American and me finding that, certainly over the last several years, I felt a sense of kind of shame and anger and embarrassment at the way that our country's positioned itself in the world and its behavior and the current administration's policies, not only toward its own people, but globally. And I disagree with it, and I know pretty much everyone I know strongly disagrees with it. And I wanted to write about that in some way that wasn't immediately polarizing or off-putting. And after thinking about it, I thought if I kind of set this in fiction and set it a few years down the road, maybe 15, wondered what life might be like if things kind of go the way they seem to be going, where freedom gets removed or something outrageous takes place and nobody does anything about it. And then the next thing happens, and you're expecting someone's got to say something about this. And there's a little flurry of news about it, and then the next thing happens. And pretty soon, I mean, we already are in a place of madness that seems inexplainable. You know, I think if you would have sat down with the American public and said, in 2000, guess what things are going to be like in 2007? No one would believe we could be at the state we're at now, but this keeps happening. And it leads to a place where it feels like the world is about ready to self-destruct. And it's East versus West. The U.S. government has become very controlling and censoring toward its own people. All the news is propaganda, essentially. All arts are regulated and censored. And I thought, what might happen if right at the moment where the button's about to be pushed, something intervened. And that something might be God, and it might be something else. But that was the kind of backdrop for the setting of the record. And then for the record, I just wrote songs from the various perspectives of different people and factions that might exist in that world.
So, Trent, I know you've had some well-documented periods of, writer's block and that kind of thing. Obviously, with this album, you didn't, you had a wealth of material. Is that what you're saying? It just came easy?
Well, it came easy because I think I've figured out what writer's block is, and as I look back...
What is it? Tell us.
We need to know.
I'll tell you. Let me talk. I'll tell you what it is. Hold on, the phone's cutting out. Just a sec. No. Most of my life, certainly my creative time within the confines of 9 Inch Nails, has been governed by fear. And it's been fear of not being good enough, or if I did have any sort of success or did something that I thought was good, that was an accident. How could I ever do that again? Will I ever write another good song? Was it luck? And a lot of it was just psyching myself out into dreading the creative process because I felt like the stakes were so high and the bar was so high, self-imposed, that I've doomed myself to failure. So now I approach writing and creating totally differently, and I sit down and it might suck, and so what? If it does, it goes in that pile. But it might be something cool, and more often than not, the cool pile starts to fill up with things. I'm much less hard on myself. I don't think that was English I just said, but...
That's all right. We don't use it very often around here either.
But I was going to say, the creativity doesn't stop with just the music, because I've been having an absolute ball over the last week just poring over all the different secret websites that you set up to help sort of preempt the album. That was all obviously part of the concept of the concept album. These websites are all set in the future. Did you do did you sort of set all those up, or is there have you got a team working for you on these websites?
I think it felt much richer if you could know the backstory, if you could see the context. And the way that I'd written it, it wasn't very literal, and it doesn't follow a narrative that goes from A to B. Purposely, there's no story in the record. It's a slice in time. But the catch of that is it reads better. I think the record sounds better if you can fill in the blanks by knowing the backstory.
See, some people would put a musical together and tour it like that, but you've gone for the website angle.
Well, if you did a musical and it was successful, you could make money. And see, I want to make sure that I constantly stay in a state of debt.
You feel more comfortable there?
And stupidly as possible. So, no, I really just try to think about the best form of narrative, whether it be a film, because it felt like I had a soundtrack but no movie, or if it was a novel or a short story or liner notes or whatever it might be. What I wanted was something that felt more of an experience when you encountered it. And it seemed to me the perfect vehicle for that was something that I noticed that Spielberg did with the movie AI several years ago, which I thought the movie wasn't that great, but he had a really cool campaign around it that had a kind of parallel story that embellished the movie that was all found on a variety of internet sites and in the real world and payphones, and it was real world, but it was fake, but it felt kind of real. And it started with, on the poster for the AI film, there was a credit for a sentient robot trainer or something, and if you Googled that name, that took you on a path that opened up a rabbit hole into a whole other mythology that embellished the film. But it was so thought out and so deep and insanely intricate that I thought maybe something like that would be an interesting way to tell the story that I wrote. And I wanted it to be something that if I was a fan and I stumbled into this, I'd lose my mind on it.
You are coming back in September to finish off the tour?
Yeah, the benefit of losing those shows in Sydney is we get to come back here to Australia again.
I was a little upset that you announced this in a press release and not by leaving USB keys on the back of toilets at gigs or something. It was a little too sort of straightforward and one-dimensional.
The toilet thing, it's so played out.
Yeah.
Wait till you see where we start putting them next time.